Alright, hi everybody, I'm Harper Wynn, and today I'm going to be comparing the films Parasite and Lagaan. But first, let's get some background on these two films. So, Parasite is directed by Bong Joon-ho. He's a South Korean director, and he's considered one of the most prominent filmmakers of today. The film Parasite follows the Kim family as they infiltrate the wealthier Park family's household as workers in order to get rich. And then the film Lagaan is directed by Ashutosh Gowarikar, and he is known for his storytelling on a very grand scale. So the film Lagaan, it tells the story of the Indian village Champaneer and how they managed to overthrow Great Britain's control over their province by defeating them in a game of cricket. So the question I'm answering today is, what camera techniques do Bong Joon-ho and Ashutosh Gowarikar use to portray neocolonialism and the effects of status? So this answer is broken up into two parts. The first part I'm talking about mobile framing, and the second part I'm talking about composition. Alright, so mobile framing is the movement of the camera's position without cutting from one shot to the next. And this occurs roughly 2 hours into the film Lagaan. So for context, this is the scene where Katra is first accepted onto the cricket team. And before he's accepted, the team is very upset that Bhuvan is asking for Katra to play with them. And this largely has to do with the caste system. In the caste system, Katra is considered lower than the villagers because he's disabled. But Bhuvan tells the team off, and he says that if they choose to discriminate against fellow citizens in this way, then they'll never be able to defeat Great Britain. And in this shot, the camera lowers from being a high-angle shot to a more eye-level shot of Katra. And this has implications for both neocolonialism and status within the film. So first, while this represents the acceptance of Katra into the team, it more importantly adds the autocriticism of the film by playing into its larger message, which is that neocolonialism can only be abolished when the victims of it come together as a united front. And then in terms of status, it portrays the sense of being above others that a person feels when they gain status in a very literal sense. And then in Parasite, mobile framing occurs around 13 minutes in the film, in the scene where Kiwoo first arrives at the Park family's household. So the camera here, it's a tracking shot that goes from a medium close-up of Kiwoo in front of the gate to a wider, low-angle shot of him in front of the house itself. And this shot represents neocolonialism, and specifically it represents the aspect of neocolonialism, which is wealth imbalance. And it does so by shifting from a close-up to a wide shot that makes Kiwoo appear significantly smaller than the house. And then in terms of status, the low angle of the camera, it portrays the fact that the Park family has much more power and status than the Kim family. And while this scene is bringing awareness to the fact that status is an aspect of this film, it's not yet commentating on it. And in order to commentate on status, Bong Joon-ho utilizes composition, which is the next aspect of this answer. So composition is how the objects and characters are arranged in the frame of a film, and both Gowarikar and Bong Joon-ho utilize their compositions to portray the fact that they believe when you gain status, you become more apathetic as a result of that. But they just do it in very different ways. So first, let's talk about Bong Joon-ho's method. So he utilizes horizontal space in his composition to showcase apathy. The example I have here, this is when Mr. and Mrs. Park are discussing their driver, and as you can see in this frame, Mr. Park is in full focus in the foreground, while Mrs. Park is in the background and slightly blurry. And the distance between these two represents their emotional distance, and the blurriness of this shot in the background just adds that distance by making it appear much more drastic. And then in Gowarikar's film, he utilizes vertical space to showcase a sense of apathy. And the example I have here, this is when the king first meets with Captain Andrew in the film. And as you can see, Captain Andrew towers over the king in this specific frame. And he appears just like he takes up much more of the vertical plane. And this alludes to the cold behavior of Captain Andrew that he exhibits throughout the film, and shortly after meeting the king, when he tells him to eat meat despite his religious beliefs. And then Bong Joon-ho, in addition to that, he utilizes composition to portray emptiness as a result of gaining status. And the example I have here, this is when the Kim family is staying in the Park family's house while the Park family is away. And as you can see in this frame, it's a very wide shot of the Kim family, but the Kim family is placed very close together in this shot. And although there's so much space in this specific frame, Bong Joon-ho intentionally places the characters very close together, just to really emphasize how empty the house around them is. And this just plays into the idea that emptiness comes with gaining status by directly contrasting how empty the household is compared to the closeness and the togetherness of the family themselves. All right, so let's recap everything we've talked about today. So similarities between similarities between Gowarikers and Bong Joon-ho's films. So they both utilize mobile framing and composition to portray meaning, and these films both have messages surrounding neocolonialism and the effects of status. And then both of these directors see becoming apathetic as one aspect that comes from gaining status. Then the differences between the two is that Gowarika has a much more optimistic outlook on how status can affect people, in that he sees that although people can become very apathetic and look down upon others when they gain status, you can also reverse those effects, which we see in the scene with Katra when he's accepted into the group. And then Bong Joon-ho, he has a much more pessimistic outlook on it, in that not only does someone become extremely apathetic when they gain status, they also become very empty inside. And his film itself leaves you with the idea that there is no redemption for somebody once they become much more powerful and have much more status. So that's all I have to share today. Thank you.